Qianmu provides a precise assessment in history of the Qin and Han dynasties, clearly arguing that Wang Meng's usurpation was not ordinary ministerial treason, but the inevitable outcome of the prevalence of Confucianism, the dominance of the theory of the interaction between heaven and man, an apocryphal thought in shaping political legitimacy from the reigns of emperors Yuan, Cheng, Ai, and Ping onward. As a Confucian scholar, Wang Meng embodied the external norms of ideal Confucian politics, cultivating an image of moral transcendence over secular aristocrats through humility, frugality, self-denial, distributing wealth to support scholars, and venerating rituals to restore antiquity. He thereby won collective support from scholar officials at court and in the localities. His path to power relied not on imperial clan seniority by blood, but on the legitimacy of the reappearance of the sage king conferred by Confucian ideology. Qianmu further demonstrates in the same work that Wang Meng's usurpation formally resembled the abdication of Yao and Shun praised in Confucian classics, representing a collective attempt by the Confucian scholarly community to transform real imperial power through idealistic politics. It was also an extraordinary historical phenomenon in which ideological force temporarily overrode institutions and blood ties. Once patriarchal clan system encountered a legitimacy crisis. These analyses appear systematically in the 1957edition of History of the Qin and Han dynasties, P. Ababashijio, on late Western Han political thought and Wang Meng's identity construction. In Peaks and Valleys, Yan Booker deepens the interpretation of the uniqueness of Wang Meng's usurpation from the perspectives of institutional structure and political culture. Placing Wang Meng's power transfer within the evolution of the Qing-Han bureaucratic system, the merging of Confucianism and legalism, and the norms of imperial succession, Yan points out that although consort clan politics was common in the late Western Han, previous consort clan power always remained subordinate to imperial authority and served the patriarchal clan system, never producing a political practice that completely overthrew the Han and established a new dynasty. Wang Meng, however, transcended the role of consort clan as imperial dependent, using the slogan of restoring ancient institutions to transform Confucian classical ideals, ritual systems, well-filled systems, moral education, and virtuous governance into concrete political programs. He successfully integrated scholar officials, local magnates, and popular opinion into a political coalition supporting his dynastic change, breaking through the succession barrier built by imperial clan bloodlines as a non-bloodline claimant. This represents an extremely special ideology-dominated form of power transfer in ancient China. Related institutional analysis and cultural interpretation appear in Peaks and Valleys, 2009 AD, p. 112, on the distinction between legitimate orthodoxy and illegitimate usurpation between the Qin and Han. In studies in the history of the Qing, Hung, Wei, and Jin dynasties, Tian Yuqing offers a more sober judgment on the historical essence of Wang Meng's usurpation from the perspective of political order stability and constitutional hidden dangers. He emphasizes that the core feature of Wang Meng's dynastic change is that it represented a power transfer completely divorced from existing institutional tracks, lacking written constitutional basis, fixed procedural constraints, and historical customary support. ITS legitimacy depended heavily on personal moral prestige, ad hoc public opinion campaigns, and temporary consensus built on apocryphal theology, rather than a stable institutional structure and rules of power transmission. Tian further argues that Wang Meng's success precisely demonstrates that when imperial authority loses its Daotong support, popular foundation, and governing effectiveness, bloodline legitimacy quickly becomes hollow, allowing non-bloodline forces to temporarily seize supreme power through ideological packaging and public recognition. This constitutes a highly subversive special variant in the ancient Chinese imperial succession order. These arguments appear in studies in the history of the Qing, Han, Wei, and Jin dynasties, 1993 ed., page 71, on the fragility of the late Western Han regime structure. Overall, Wang Meng's usurpation achieved a transfer of supreme power through non-bloodline, extra-institutional, and ideological means. It both broke the absolute monopoly of patriarchal bloodline over imperial succession and revealed the powerful capacity of the Confucian Daotong and public opinion to shape political legitimacy under specific historical conditions. Yet this model of dynastic change fundamentally lacked institutionalized restraint mechanisms, procedural succession rules, and contractual boundaries of power, relying entirely on personal prestige and temporary public consensus for maintenance. Although it formally escaped the shackles of bloodline inheritance, it failed to establish a stable, sustainable, and replicable constitutional foundation. It eventually collapsed rapidly amid disordered reforms, social upheaval, and the disintegration of its power base, becoming a highly cautionary failed model of non-bloodline imperial succession and extra-institutional power transfer in ancient China. It also provided an important historical reference for later dynasties reflecting on imperial legitimacy, succession norms, and institutional rigidity. 第5章西方宪制源头与1215大宪章最高法传统与王在法下的奠基 Chapter 5 The Origins of Western Constitutionalism and the 1215 Magna Carta Founding the Tradition of Supreme Law and the King Under Law 第1节西方法律的终极源头罗各斯自然法与神法的千年汇流 Section E The Ultimate Source of Western Law The millennial convergence of logos, natural law, and divine law. The constitutional spirit of law above royal power and the king under law in Western political civilization was not an abrupt political compact in the Magna Carta, but a triple accumulation rooted in ancient Greek rationalism, the Roman legal system, and medieval Christian theological tradition. IT's core bond and value kernel lay in the enduring tradition of natural law, whose supreme authority always pointed to a universal order transcending secular monarchs, a lineage of unshakable classical status in Western political and legal history. As ultimate principle of Western politics and law, natural law was not first created by Cicero. Its intellectual lineage shows a clear historical progression. Initially grounded in ancient Greek philosophy, then systematically formed by the Hellenistic Stoics, and finally classicized and institutionalized in Roman terms by Cicero, before becoming the core principle running through Western civilization. Ancient Greek philosophy first established logos as the fundamental law and rational origin of the cosmos. Heraclitus regarded logos as the eternal order governing all things, representing the philosophical prototype of later natural law. Plato used the world of ideas to set a transcendent standard of justice, regarding universal and eternal justice as the ultimate foundation of human law. Aristotle explicitly argued that the rule of law was superior to the rule of man, emphasizing that law should be reason unaffected by desire and that the authority of the polis must obey universal justice and the common good, not the ruler's personal will. His thought already contained the core of natural law, universal reason above secular power, forming an early source of natural law theory. In the Hellenistic era, the Stoics elevated logos into a cosmic natural reason, completing the transition from philosophical logos to political natural law. As the first school in Western thought to construct natural law as a complete, universal, and practicable political philosophy, they held that human beings obey the same natural law. The essence of law is not the command of power, but the manifestation of natural reason. And positive law is legitimate only if consistent with natural law. Transmitted to Roman political practice by Roman jurists, this idea became the philosophical foundation of the Western rule of law and natural law traditions. During the Roman Republic and Empire, natural law was systematically formalized. Cicero, as the synthesizer of Stoic natural law, and its Roman interpreter was not its originator, but the pivotal figure who translated Greek natural law into Roman political language and fixed its classic definition. In On the Laws and on the Republic, he famously stated, "True law is right reason, consonant with nature, spread through all humanity, constant and eternal. We may not depart from it by senate or people, nor need we look for any commentator or interpreter beyond itself." He sharply distinguished the will of the prince from true law, placing natural law above all positive laws and secular authorities. Any secular power could not override natural law. The ruler's legitimacy came from obedience to law, not possession of power. Law essentially meant public reason governed by natural law as its ultimate criterion. This idea directly shaped the spirit of Roman law. Law as the product of public reason, not arbitrary royal will. The Corpus Juris Civilis compiled under Justinian in the Eastern Roman Empire further defined natural law as the value source and legitimacy basis of all human law, describing it as the law which nature has taught to all animals, the origin of both the law of nations and civil law. Thus, natural law above positive law, law above power, became the underlying gene of Western political civilization.